You want to say some few things? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, sorry for that. We have Dr. Ali Mohammed from the Northeastern Professional. It's a professional body, right? Okay, just make your remarks.
Assalamu alaikum. Your Excellencies, members of the National Assembly, the members of the local assembly. My name is, as you have been told, Dr. Ali Mahmoud. I am one of the executive committee members of Northeastern Professionals Association. And mine is not to give a lecture, but to introduce you to a very important organization from Northern Kenya, or Northeastern Province. And so I would be reading to you, and I will try to be as brief as possible. So NAPA stands for Northeastern Professionals Association. And NAPA is a professional association collectively founded and constituted by Kenya-Somali professionals. The aim of the association is to facilitate and contribute in the socio-economic aspirations, which is part of the theme of this conference, and to design and deliver initiatives oriented towards the prosperity of the three counties of Northern Kenya. To that end, the association's networking capacity and shared intellectual interests and objectives transcends Northern Kenya. It covers all the Somalis across the country. And why we founded NAPA is for the simple reason, the reasons why we are all here today, that the Northern Kenya as a region is faced with a multitude of challenges, which includes but not limited to poverty, illiteracy, recurrent droughts, and infrastructural issues. And therefore, it is important to appreciate the semi-autonomy governance offered to us by devolution to our county governments to address in part or in whole much of these challenges. The professionals found it introspectively and voluntarily that offering solutions and support to their people and the region is a social contract that we all must commit to. And I call upon all of you to join the Northeastern professionals, because by virtue of being here, by virtue of being leaders, both political and private, and in public life, we are all professionals. If you need more information on that, I would really appreciate if you can join us. I will not go through all of the things that we have prepared earlier in the interest of time, but in closing, I would like to say that this is a monumental task. The challenges that we have mentioned, the many things that we have talked about here, the insecurity issues. So as a monumental task, then we can say that the government executive, members of local and national assembly, the civil society, as well as the professionals must work together and collaborate on bringing solutions to the problems that we have. With that, I thank you very much for according me this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Chair Dr. Ali, for that informative session. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. My name is Mahmoud Sheikh, a Member of Parliament for Wajir South and the Treasurer for PPG. I want to take about half an hour for all this session. I don't want it more than that. So we will be swift enough. The panelists will be swift enough. The questions will be swift enough. We will hold the questions to a maximum of about 5, 6. I will welcome comments and questions, but please be brief, and that is what it is. The topic we're going to be discussing on this theme, or the theme title, as you can see on your schedules, is mainstreaming pastoralist issues into the National Development Equalization Fund, Census, referendum, and boundary delineations. But I think we can do a bit better than that by including education, ensuring that someone talks about and comments on education, issues to do with poverty and food security. These are some pertinent issues. What we want to see is an outcome of policy and active decision solutions. Definitely we understand that what is important to us is about development of our region. And therefore, I will not be taking more time on this, but the preamble of this session is about our arid counties, our collective ownership, and our collective defense and responsibilities. Equalization Fund is a creation of the Constitution under the Article 204 that has been mentioned earlier but it is anchored in our national development agenda, and that is why we take it as an agenda in the PPG and as well as FCDC. Equalization Fund is public money to accelerate development for the communities, for the communities that were left behind since the colonial times and past colonial times. Pastoralists communities need to be integral part of any development. CRS review of Equalization Fund requires constant engagement. I am giving the preamble of the topic. Constant engagements on the arid lands and communities. The funds have not been released to serve the purpose it has been aimed for. Appropriation began 2013-2014 financial year, but only 1 billion out of the 14 billion commitment over the past 5 years has been released. Where is this money for? Now, I will begin on this. I want to introduce my panel first of all, before I can hand over the discussion. Mheshimiwa Musa Arbele of Leisamis, the Member of Parliament for Leisamis, Professor Gulie, Abdi Gulie, and Mheshimiwa Wakili Abdulqadir, Mheshimiwa 001 Sankok, Mheshimiwa Senator Muhammad of Mandera, and as well James Muruguti of the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, representing the DG, the Director General, who could not make it. To our panels, what we want the discussions to focus on, particularly to aim on, is to ensure that we are discussing the particular issues that concerns the mainstreaming of pastoralist issues into the national development. Therefore, on issues to do with equalization, let me begin with my brother on the left, Mheshimiwa Arbele. Please, could you give us your gist into this and how well the pastoralists can benefit from mainstreaming national development on equalization aspect of it?
Mainstreaming, mimi naongea topic mainstreaming pastoralists issues into national government. Hiyo mainstreaming.
Yeah, no, it's working now. Thank you very much, Session Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, I have been asked to speak on the Equalization Fund. I will be very brief. So I'll go through 5 or 6 points very quickly. Number one, Equalization Fund was an intervention agreed when we were negotiating the Constitution, essentially to help large constituencies and marginalized areas catch up with the rest of the country as far as infrastructure is concerned. So it was supposed to start in the budget year 2010-2011 up to now. It has a sunset clause of 20 years and 0.5% of ordinary revenue going to marginalized areas for purposes of infrastructure. In our calculation, to date, that fund should have had 45.4 billion shillings. That is the first statistics you need to keep in mind. 45.4 billion over the last 8 or 9 financial years. Number two, so far, only 900 million has been utilized. Number three, only about 12 billion has been appropriated. Number four, and in the last supplementary budget, about I think 4.67 billion was budgeted, but that was removed as far as the supplementary budget is concerned. So our key issues are, number one, that this constitutional duty, and finally that it's really the Treasury that's supposed to administer and ensure that every year these funds are appropriated and budgeted for and utilized. So in our opinion, number one, it's a major constitutional breach by the national government. Number two, those are substantial resources with a sunset clause for very much needed services. And number three, members of parliament and the political leadership in the region really has a big responsibility to bear in ensuring that these funds are utilized. But really, the responsibility is on the national government not to breach the constitution as far as this resource is concerned. I think in the interest of time, I will stop there. If there are any questions, I'll be more than happy to get.
Could you carry on from there, please?
Thank you very much. I will not repeat what my code. Suffice to say that, you know, Article 202 of the defines how national raised revenue is to be shared equitably among the county. I mean between national government and the counties. Article 203 sets the criteria for sharing that revenue. Article 204 talks about the Equalization Fund, which is specific to marginalized areas. Now, in as far as allocating fund between two levels of government and also between counties, the provisions of Article 203 must be adhered to, you know, in the letter and the spirit of the Constitution. Article 204 talks about the Equalization Fund. The unfortunate bit is Article 204, Section 4, does not require Parliament to approve the recommendations of CRA. It's only for noting while appropriating. Going forward, I think we should change that provision of the Constitution in the new current, you know, discussion in the change the Constitution, so that, you know, we make sure that whatever CRA proposes is subjected to parliamentary approval. The fund, the Equalization Fund, has not been released, only about 1 billion shillings. I think Abdul Haj talked about 900 million, thereabout. 12 billion appropriated, not disbursed. 4.9, which was in the budget last year, was reallocated. It shows the impunity with which the National Treasury is acting in this matter. I will suggest, because those of us who are in the Senate do not appropriate funds for national government, our colleagues in the National Assembly should actually freeze all their procedures on appropriation until that money is brought and fully brought on board in terms of arrears and the rest. We must make our position known, because these funds are actually, and you will be surprised because the first disbursement was done in 2015, 2016. Only after we in Cielo made noise about it and President Uhuru said, let it be given, 6 billion shillings. We don't want to be left at the mercy of the President while the Constitution provides that provision. CRA or Parliament is supposed to, every 5 years, to come with a formula for sharing revenue between the counties. We have done 6 years now. The first formula was for 3 years. The second was for 2 years, although the first one went for 4 years. Now we have done 6 years. Now, from now, we have another formula for sharing revenue. CRA, as you all know, is now struggling with the proposal that they are going to bring before Parliament. We expect them to give that formula, their letter, submission to both Houses of Parliament and National Treasury by end of March. Still, there is room for people to put their input. I'll suggest to, as FCDC, let us put, you know, our views in that one. Please, let's write. I know attempt has been made. Let's put our view, because they have shifted totally from the parameters that were there in the last 6 years. They have come with new parameters, some of which are very difficult to understand. And we in Parliament will assure you that when it comes to us, we will actually subject it to a lot of discussion again and further public participation, because as opposed to the those who benefit from Equalization Fund, this one requires parliamentary approval. Senate must approve by a largest majority. In fact, 24 delegations must vote on it. The National Assembly must also agree with us on that one. So it's a matter before us. I cannot discuss it now because it is not something with us officially, but we know we have issues. It will come to us, but I think we need you to put your input. Equalization Fund, we must fight for our right, for our space. As earlier said, the space of Kenya doesn't belong to particular groups or individuals. We must fight for our space, and going forward, make sure that the funds that are meant for us are coming to us. And when we are doing the formula of CRA, take the provisions of Article 203 into account in its fullest in terms of the criteria. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator. I think the notes are being taken for that particular outcomes on this before the questions arise on that. Now, on the issue of development in that, while we swiftly go forward, Hon Sankok, could you give us a bit of a light on the issues of national development that can support streamlining development for also arid and semi-arid regions?
Thank you very much, Mheshimiwa. And Your Excellency, Adan Duale, Your Excellencies, Governors present, Deputy Governors, Honorable Members, there is no way we can mainstream pastoralist issues into national development without first of all referring to the sessional paper number 10 of 1965. Because in that sessional paper, it was coiled that investment should be done in high potential areas. And in their retrogressive, ignominious, and unpalatable thinking, they refer to high potential areas to areas of agriculture, leaving 80% of Kenya, which is endowed with underground minerals, oil, geothermal, electricity, and others. For sure, there is no country that ever become rich courtesy of sukuma wiki, cabbages, maharagwe, and the rest. Countries become rich because of the oil that is in Turkana, because of the geothermal electric production that is in Narok. But because of that singular sessional paper and marginalization of 80% of Kenya, which is more productive than others, the country was impoverished. And that is why we want to say that mainstreaming, first of all, will start by saying that 80% of the landmass of Kenya hold the key to economic development in this country. We hold the key because we are endowed with underground resources that have made countries like Ghana, Libya, and others rich. And that is why resources must be placed into our 80% landmass. Your Excellencies, we have also to see our livestock. What will we do with our livestock? Because for a long time we have concentrated mostly on meat product. We have forgotten that there are other byproducts from livestock, including hide and skins, including even production of calcium from bones. We should now invest so much on leather factories and produce finished product. It is not harmful to have wallets or jackets or handbags made in Garissa, made in Marsabit, if we invest so much on livestock. We should also desist from this capital crime, which is traditionally sanitized to camouflage rape, deportation of masses, and murder. You know, it is sanitized traditionally and given a small name of cattle rustling. We should accept the fact that in that cattle rustling, there is a lot of crimes that are inside there. Because of time, we should be able to mainstream pastoralist issues. There is no need of other parts of Kenyans buying land in our counties and saying every Kenyan can live everywhere. But when there is terrorism in Bandera, now it becomes local versus non-local. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. This is the only one working. Thank you very much, Mheshimiwa Sankok. That's quite well articulated. The aspects of all animals are equal, but there are those that are more equal than others. all regions could be perhaps taken that way. Now, with that aspect, while we continue swiftly to discuss this, I want to ask one of the panels, although it has not been clearly indicated who is going to take on this, the issue of education and regional integration, and the issues of national development and education, whether that should be mainstreamed as well. Senator, do you want to take on that? Yes. Or in the other aspect of it. No, but within mainstreaming as well is a question, a simple question onto mainstreaming it. Who wants to take? No, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I hold the stage, Chair. Do you want to say a word or so about education on this aspect?
Thank you very much. The session chair has given direction, so I'll go ahead and comply. I think Mheshimiwa Dadab would have been the best person to handle this, but I think the issues on education, the most current right now as far as the pastoral areas are concerned, is really to do with teachers. And the fact that because of security issues, we have a number of teachers who have to move out of that area. We have a big challenge between the Ministry of Education and the Teacher Service Commission and the Teachers Union as far as teachers are concerned. There was a proposal by the Ministry of Education to have the entry levels for teacher training colleges reduced to allow young people to apply. Very many people did. And then in a strange twist, the Teacher Service Commission pushed to have that overturned and actually instigated a court case. So I think that is really the most critical issue as far as mainstreaming of education is concerned, the lack of teachers in the region, and the need to have more, not to fall of Mheshimiwa, but have local teachers. But I agree with him, if we can get teachers to serve, and you will be surprised that there are about 5,000 or more Kenyan teachers in Somalia. Yet we have a big shortage of teachers in northern Kenya because of security issues. And you all know there are far much more challenging security issues in Mogadishu. And I have been to Mogadishu and met Kenyan teachers serving in Mogadishu. Yet we have a problem in Wajir, Garissa, or Mandera, where we have security issues. So I think I'll stop there, Session Chair, and then we can move to. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Wakili. I think the issue of education will be discussed further in the session, the theme for the thematic session for education. Now, if we can go ahead on the issues of census. Now, what is your take? What is your take, James Muguti? What is your take on the issues of census in terms of arid and semi-arid regions? And what are the challenges? What are the opportunities? What are the issues that really touches communities that migrate during census period? What are the challenges that you think, how we can harness those challenges and where we can stop at?
Okay, thank you, Chair. Your Excellencies, the governors, honorable members of the Senate and Parliament, I'll just mention a few things about the census. One, we all know, we all appreciate the value and the importance of the census in management of development. And whatever we've been discussing since yesterday, it all touches on what numbers are we serving, how do we plan, what numbers do we have in our plans, how accurate are these numbers. And the census will come handy in providing most of these indicators. And I want to say in this forum that the government, through the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, we have been doing planning for the census. A number of activities have been undertaken, including the mapping of almost all the counties. We have only 3 more counties remaining. We have mapped the northeastern counties. We have mapped Mandera County. Even Garissa has been mapped. And I believe that all preparations are ready for the census. One thing I want to mention about the issue of the nomadism and the pastoralism community is that undertaking of the census is not by foreigners. Undertaking of the census is by the locals. And the Bureau is putting in place issues to ensure that all the locals are involved. We have been doing planning at the national level, but very soon, I think from next month, we'll be rolling down to the county committees where all the leaders will be involved so that we can discuss how best can we get accurate figures for our counties and our communities. Above all the things that we need to understand is that since people that will be doing enumeration will be coming from the localities, most of the challenges that we are perceiving to impend on the census might not be there, because I don't believe that there will be challenges of security when I'm living in my own homestead. And these are the people that will be undertaking the enumeration there. And I believe we should be all get accurate and quality census. We all know that all indicators are related to the census. We use the census, the population census as denominators, and we cannot measure how much we are doing, how much development we are doing if we get an effective census. So my appeal is that all of us, because we need to come into this activity, all of us, we need to participate. We need to mobilize our people, come the census date, which we all know is on 24th and 25th night of August this year. Our people need to be aware that this is the census date, and we need to come out and be enumerated. The leaders, for this case, we need to ensure that as we do our other leadership activities, we inform the public. What does the census entail? What are the issues that will be collected during the census? Right now, we have moved across all the homesteads, all the villages, all the locations, and we have gotten a lot of support. I want to thank the leadership in this region for the activity that we have just undertaken. We got a lot of support from the political leadership, from the administrative leadership, and that's where we were able to go into each of the sublocations, each of the villages, and we were able to collect information. During the census, we'll also collect information of livestock, which is key to this region. And of course, those who are managing livestock will be able to know how many of which type of livestock are we managing. If possible, you can also collect on the dynamics of their movements so that we can also plan for all that. So for the census, we need all to support one another, both the political, the administrative, the national, and the county governments, because it's all about all of us. Census is not somebody's activity, it's for all of us. And once we get it right, it will also be right for all Kenyans in the future. I think that's what I can say for now.
Thank you very much, James. I think that has been clearly outlined on. And I would like to have our brother, Professor Gulia, to take a bit of some points as well on that, on the issues of boundary delineations. Obviously, if he has got some points to add on census aspect, please go ahead on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mheshimiwa. I was asked to make a presentation, which I had prepared for. Unfortunately, I have to summarize it in 5 minutes or 10 minutes, which is really missing a lot of the detail. But I must start by saying in 2010, the people of Kenya promulgated what is considered to be a progressive constitution whose key achievements include establishment of devolution in this country. The constitution provided for relevant articles for its amendments, and such amendments shall require a referendum if they relate to any of the matters listed under Article 255, and these matters include supremacy of the Constitution, territory of Kenya, sovereignty of the people, the national values and principles, Bill of Rights, and so on and so forth. And so I was asked to talk about referenda and delimitation of boundaries. And so in terms of referendum, the statutory procedure for the conduct of referenda is actually governed by Constitution and provisions of sections 49 to 55 of the Elections Act. The IEBC is not an initiator of a referendum, but a facilitator. I think this is the point that we need to understand. The Constitution provides for two mechanisms where an amendment to the Constitution can be done. It can either be through parliamentary initiative pursuant to provisions of Article 256, or by popular initiative pursuant to provisions of Article 257 of the Constitution, either of which may result in a referenda if such amendments relate to any of the matters that I had listed earlier on. And so that is the referendum process. Now, any bill that is seeking to amend the Constitution shall be approved in a referendum if at least 20% of the registered voters in each of the, at least half of the counties vote in that referenda. And secondly, if the amendment is supported by a simple majority of the citizens voting in the referendum. This means 50+1 vote of the voters who turned up to vote.
The Commission has so far received documentation, a draft bill, and almost 1.4 million signatures in support of it from Third Way Alliance of Kenya on the 28th of February 2019. The same is being processed, and if it will be verified, the signatures will be verified that all those who provided their signatures and supported that particular draft bill are registered voters, then of course the process will continue. It will therefore mean that we will submit those that draft bill to all the counties in the country for the continuation of that exercise. Now, ideally, if we are to look at any referenda, before we even undertake any changes to the Constitution, we have had our Constitution since 2010. We should have conducted an audit of implementation of that Constitution so that we are in a position to know what is it exactly that we are having a referendum on. This debate has unfortunately been missed, and it appears that there are other considerations that are going on, and therefore I would urge the FCDC counties, the leadership of these counties, to come together and interrogate the 2010 Constitution and isolate issues that affect them as communities and ensure that those issues are addressed in whatever referenda that will be presented before them going forward. So that's just an advice. In terms of boundary delimitation, I think the Commission's mandate of delimiting boundary units is set out in Article 89 of the Constitution, which is to review the names and boundaries of Constitution at intervals of not less than 8 years and not more than 12 years. The same provision provides that any review of electoral boundaries shall be completed at least 12 months before a general election of members of Parliament. Since the last review was finalized in February 2012, the timelines for the next review is between early 2020 and to 2024. It is important to note that one of the key criteria in delimitation exercise is population, and therefore the boundary review must be preceded by a national census, which is conducted by Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. As you have just heard, many people think it's IEBC that do the census. We have no role in that particular process. We are only consumers of the data, official data, that comes from that process. The next census, of course, is slated, as has been mentioned, 24th, 25th August of this year. Other parameters considered in the delimitation process include geographical features and urban centers, communities of interest, historical, economic, and cultural ties, means of communication. So these are all other factors that are considered alongside population that will guide the process of boundary delimitation. In the course of boundary delimitation exercise, the Commission is legally obligated to consult all interested parties, including those in ASALs. The Commission, that is IEBC, will therefore have rounds of visits to all the counties and hold stakeholder consultations at various cadres in order to ensure that we come up with proper delimitation.
Prof, summarize if you don't mind, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
So anyway, the Commission is currently involved in preparatory phase. We have divided this delimitation process into 3 phases. It is pre-delimitation, delimitation, and post-delimitation. And currently we are engaged in the pre-delimitation phase. We have also done risk mapping, and we have been visiting different counties, and we are concluding this exercise in the course of this month or next month, early next month. And once this is done, then we will begin the actual delimitation process among receipt of the final census results dates are hopefully early next year. Currently, we are doing review of issues arising from the first review, development of a strategy and work plan to deliver this second review, identification of competency gaps, acquisition of relevant skills and associated equipments, and acquisition of expert panels, methodologies for public hearings and outreach, data acquisition, collection, and collation. So this is the pre-delimitation phase which the Commission is currently engaged in. Thank you.
Professor Gulie. Mheshimiwa Sambele, Mheshimiwa Arbele, if you can have that. If you can take a pawn on that and carry on from there on. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. All protocols observed. I want to admit here too that earlier on I was actually asked to speak something about on pastoralism and census, including the identities on the move. However, when my brother actually asked me to contribute to any other agenda which I did not prepare for, I really got so. In regard to the subject which I was actually earlier on advised to speak about is the issue of pastoralism. And in the interest of the subject, I felt it's an opportunity for me to say something about a community which is a pastoral community, and due to the regard that pastoral community happen to move from one place to another, they happen to break away from their mainstream community. And this community is called Rendille community. Historically, it is said that the Rendille community have migrated from Somalia or from Somalis and because of pastoralism, they happen to find themselves in their current settlement, which is Marsabit County. Throughout the world, Rendille community are only found in Leisamis constituency and not any other place in this world. It is therefore my request that PPG takes this agenda, takes Rendille community or pastoral community who happen to break away from the other communities become an agenda, so that we get to know our roots, where did we come from. And maybe if we have also Turkanas who happen to break away from some of their relatives, it is better we try to discuss that as an agenda. And it's also my appeal to the governors present here today, particularly the governor of Marsabit, the governor of Isiolo, the governor of Tana River, the governor of Garissa, the governor of Wajir, the governor of Mandera. The Rendilles are looking up to you. As it is being said, that because there is a professor who had written that Rendilles lived far apart from the settlements of their Somali tribesmen, that they were separated from them due to warlike events, that they were forced to give up Islam, their religion, in order to be allowed to marry Samburu girls. So the Rendille community today, they are still practicing cultural practices. And they actually, they are actually left behind their religion. They don't have Islam. And it is actually my appeal to these brothers, the governors, and even all the Somali fraternity, for us to come together to save and even try to know who are these Rendilles. We have been branded that we are Erdid. Actually, we are not Erdid. The Somalis are the Erdid. For us, we are Erdon. We want to trace back our steps to come and look for our brothers, the Somalis, for them to get hold of our hand so that we feel accommodated and appreciated as one and part and parcel of your brothers. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Hon Arbele is en route to the north, to the Horn, I guess. We'll help you get there. Now, look, we have come to the end of our panelists' discussion. I'm going to open up for questions, and I'll limit these questions and comments as well. But before I do that, I've got one pertinent position just to take on with Wakili Abdulqadir, who has been the chair of the Constitution Development, I guess. Chair, an audit of the Constitution implementation is a thing that Professor Gulia has mentioned on that. Where do we as a nation stand on failure to fully implement the Constitution? What are our legal limbo And then I can go to the rest to discuss that particularly.
Well, thank you, Chair. And so I think we have gone through a number of years to see what works, the constitutional review process was a very long process, and it was meant to answer or address challenges we had as a country. For the North, especially Garissa, Mandera, Wajir, it was also really the first time that the inhabitants of this area were voting on their participation in the country's founding law, because I think they had boycotted the first constitutional process before independence. So the main issues in the constitution address large questions, whether it is the form of government, whether it is representation, whether it is the different organs of the state. They are meant to address challenges that now we have time to see which of those have panned out well. So, for example, devolution is a very novel idea. When we were deciding the number of counties, how they will be structured, how the governor will be elected, the MCAs, all that was discussion around ideas. In a committee of parliament, we were members of parliament 27 then. And then discussing and agreeing on challenging controversial issues. So, for example, do we go for parliamentary or presidential? That is a big issue. 1 man, 1 vote versus 1 kilometer, 1 vote. That is a very big issue. How many levels of parliament, houses of parliament should we have? That is a big issue. All those were things that were to a large extent in the abstract. Now we have seen how the Senate and the National Assembly are operating. We have seen how the judiciary is operating. We have seen how county governments are operating. So we have quite a bit of information now to be able to address these challenges from a point of knowledge. Having said that, there was an audit undertaken through the National Assembly, through a structure by the National Assembly with the National Audit Office. I think they developed a report, so there's a report to that extent. There are areas we haven't done very well. From my own anecdotal, the areas we haven't done very well. Chapter 6 is a major, major failure. We haven't done very well because I think the way it is structured is a very difficult way. There are certain others that we have done very well on. I think devolution has done very well. There is one we have completely failed on. That was the gender quota in parliament. And even last week, I think there was a proposal in parliament. I know the women parliamentarians and women leaders here set up something last night. And I had asked Mheshimiwa Safia to consider me as an associate member of that of that setup, but Mheshimiwa here says he's also an associate member. But that's one of the major failures we have. There is Article 100 in terms of marginalized issues. So there are a number of areas we have not done well. We know which those are. There are a number we have done well, and 10 years is a reasonably good time to look at. But my own 2 cents is that whatever we do must not be for political expediency. It must be for answering key challenges we have. Because one of the reasons why it took us so long to come to the new constitution was because the constitutional process was part of the political process. And what we need to do is look at the constitution, see what has worked for us, see what hasn't worked, and decide to do changes that are beneficial to the common citizen and that are beneficial to the average Kenyan going forward. But we have time, we have had the sufficient experience, and there are certain things that we could do better.
So it is time to review that. Thank you very much, panelists. Now I'll go to the audience in this case, and I can see a handful of hands, but I'll start from my right, Mheshimiwa Hire, and then I'll go from there on. I'll come along. Mheshimiwa Hire of Lagdera, please go ahead. There he is. And please be very precise. Be very precise. Time is against us.
Thank you, Session Chair. First of all, I want to assure my brother, Honorable Arbele, who is a rare don, that the rare is ready for you, and we want you to come. My question is to Honorable Abdikadir. I know he's an established constitutional lawyer. Mheshimiwa, what's your take on the definition of marginalized areas? Because there's a proposal by CRA to reclassify what a marginalized area is, even to include areas from developed counties like Bungoma, like Kiambu, like Kikuyu, and all those areas. The second question is to the representative of the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. You are aware that the Ministry of Interior is implementing something called NIMS, the National National Integrated Identity Management System. A system which personally I believe is shrouded with a lot of mystery because there was minimal public participation. I remember when it came to the floor of the House, there were some amendments I proposed to move. In the first session, it was defeated, but I think there was readmittal. And unfortunately, I was out of the country then. But there's a feeling that the data of these NIMS will be used as a basis. Will be used by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics in comparison to the census numbers. There's a feeling like that. Because these numbers, the way it is hurriedly been implemented without looking at all the privacy laws we have in these countries where they are adequate to capture all these things, it's been implemented, and in fact, it has been started. I think the only people that were involved were the chiefs and assistant chiefs who were directed to recruit people who have IT knowledge like 7 or 8 months ago. We have this feeling that this will be used as a basis of comparison with the census numbers. What is your take on this? Thank you.
My microphone is, so Majority Leader, sorry, you raised your hands later, but please, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. You know, I was wondering where Arbelo is coming in this program. Because it's about mainstreaming politics, but I have realized he wants to mainstream Rendile in the pastoralist. And I think he was talking to governors. I said earlier, there are small communities which are marginalized within the pastoralist community. Even the Bajuni of, but I thought the governor is a Bajun. The governor of, the former governor of Lamu, the current, is a Bajun. Oh, okay. So I think I have 2 comments. One is to Kenya Bureau of Statistics. And I'm happy he met the parliamentary pastoralists, in fact, not pastoralists, but the northeastern members of parliament. Maybe we will have another meeting with all the MPs from the pastoralist so that as we move forward, we agree. But census is a very sensitive issue. You need to take that. And there's a feeling in the country that games are being played. So you tell your bosses, up to the minister, that if you play games, we'll also play games. The way you count in Kiambu and Kisumu and Eldoret, you do the same for these pastoralist counties. We are not asking for a favor. We are part of Kenya and you must follow the law. Professor Gulie, enda umwambie Chapokate na hiyo timu yenu, whether you, the law gives you between 2024 up to 20. We have said it there. No single word. And Abdikadir knows, Muhammad knows, those of us who are in the 10th parliament, how we, Mheshimiwa Moroto, how we got these constituencies and these wards and these counties, God knows. And whatever the Constitution has given you, nobody can take it. So we want to give you also, unajua ni lazima mapema tukupatie muktasari wa habari. Tunakupatia habari ya mapema. Nyinyi mujaribu kuchukua kitu kidogo ya any seat ya pastoralist alafu mupeleke mahali ingine. And that is why, you know, when some people wanted to come and came and be part of us. Apana, hii ni maneno yetu. Because there is something in the air that we represent trees and we have no apologies. We represent the biggest land in Kenya, minerals, ng'ombe, mbuzi, hii jua, hata hii jua tuna represent. Wewe represent your baridi yako, una represent coffee, sisi tuna represent ngamia na ng'ombe. Wewe represent uko fish, sisi tuna represent hii ng'ombe na hii ngamia na hii wafugaji. Sasa kila mtu akae kwake amani. We have agreed with the president that we want to unite the country. And in that unity, if you want to disenfranchise, either through census or through boundary review, sisi pia ni wanaume na wamama. Tumejipanga na tutapambana na nyinyi. Mimi hiyo ndio, unajua lazima leader atume message. Na hiyo mimi naongea kwa niaba ya hata mama ile anachunga Pokot ng'ombe. Si tuko pamoja? Tuko pamoja? Yeah, asanteni.
Thank you very much. Gender representation, Rehema. If I don't go the gender down.
Thank you, Daktari. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank these very powerful panelists. They really gave us value for our time. My question goes to the representative of Ministry of Planning regarding the census. What I want to ask you is, what is the impact of mapping of household that you just mentioned in regards to their upcoming census process? Why I'm asking this is because in some counties, the whole exercise was done under the carpets. Most of the leaders were not aware. We raised that issue, and it's because in that mapping process, there are some places where there were insecurity at the time, and there was the boundary, or rather some sort of dispute. And households in these areas were not counted. Isiolo is one of those counties, so I want to know, because we were told that that issue will be resolved before the census. And now we are just some few days, few months to census. My other question goes to our lawyer. I want to ask you whether, as the women of this country, we can go back to court to seek the court interpretation in regards to two-third gender, and if we can seek to demand for the parliament to be dissolved in terms of lack of the constitutionality. Finally, leader, now that you are here, and you've given a lot of commands to our brother from IBC, Professor Goulier. And I just want to alert you that even yesterday you guided me, I stand guided, but there is a report from PAC that is targeting them. So
address the panel, Mheshimiwa Pole.
So this is matters parliament. And you know, leader, because this is the forum that brings all of us together.
Okay.
It is good, we need it as a sensitization. The report that is in front of the House is a very biased report. Okay. And therefore, we need to protect our people going forward.
Noted, Mheshimiwa. The Deputy Governor Mandera, you were raising your hand. Yeah. After that. Sorry, I'll give you.
Thank you, Daktari. I think I wish to say our brother heard it. As the PPG team, we ought to give this community affirmative action so that they are mainstreamed in the other pastoral communities. In fact, as people of Northeastern Province, we will accommodate you and we welcome you. My question is for my friend from Kenya Bureau of Statistics. One, I think the system has not been participatory. Indeed, it has left out the county government and other leaders in the process of mapping. And this has resulted to a lot of fear in the people actually. This resulted to just you sneaking out to villages and possibly be doing ABCD, of course, which was not as per the requirement. It is my belief that you ought to involve people in the processes of mapping. Secondly, I don't know how far it's true, but there are rumors that the Ministry of Planning is trying to push the issue of census to Ministry of Security because it is being led by Matiang'i, a very tough man. Thank you.
I'm going to come to you, all of you. I'll just give opportunity to Mheshimiwa Raso and then Governor, and then I'll come to you, and then I'll come to you, and then you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Maybe I want to start from Ministry of Planning. Why do we need
just that's all, yeah. Thank you.
My question really is, why do we need biometric in doing the census, just like in the general election? And also, if there is already a plan in position that there are predetermined issues in terms of boundary, in terms of constituencies, in terms of what should happen, in terms of, even allocation. Maybe we'd like to hear from you on that. Now, the other thing is, maybe to Wakili here. There are many things that we have borrowed from America, including actually sessional paper number 10 of 1965. The drafter was a man from the Ford Foundation. Now, when it comes to population, when it comes to census, we appear to be on our own. But when we try to define democracy, even political democracy, we try to say that we are borrowing from America. If you look at America, there are small states, like the states of Rhode Island, Maryland, Delaware. These are small states, but they are represented by 2 senators, just like the state of New York. The question I want to ask is, why does it become different when you look at the Kenyan populations of the people in Central, in Nyanza, in Western, and when you compare them with the people in the arid and semi-arid lands?
Thank you, Mheshimiwa.
Finally, just one more, please.
Come on, we are on time.
The Rendiles are the 3rd largest community in Marsabit County. They are not the minority.
Very good.
There are many other minorities. There are 14 communities, as my governor said. So, if our friend wants to come back to Garissa, to Mandera, to Wajir, he is very much welcome to do that. But the Rendiles belong to Marsabit.
I think Mheshimiwa Arbela has had the great trick of the Rendiles. Governor Roba, Your Excellency.
Okay, thank you very much. And I have 2 questions, both to Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. I'm sorry you're on the receiving end because you are the suspicious character in the room. Now, what I want to ask is, one, in relation to the mapping exercise that is ongoing across the country. What strategic, planning have you put in place to take care of mobile pastoral communities? For example, we're in the middle of extended dry spell in this region. The mapping exercise is just taking place in Wajir, Garissa, and Mandera. The question is, mapping is pegged to an area already settled. Mahali watu wanaishi tayari. You've not done any planning, you've not done public participation, you've not done civic education, you've not prepared the pastoral communities to come back and join an already existing settlement for you to map. Now they are up and about. What strategic planning have you put in place to make sure that these pastoral communities, since census is an exhaustive counting of persons, what strategic direction have you put in place to take care of this pastoral nature of the population? And 2, would you have the opportunity to carry out mapping after doing civic education and community participation, and where then mobilization can be done for pastoral communities to join an existing settlement? Then they must be included as a right into the mapping in order to make sure they don't miss out. Lastly, and this is the issue of you know, planning for execution of what you have just decided to do. It is, you know, a taboo in these pastoral communities for people to be counted. It is the legal mandate of Kenya National Bureau of Statistics to carry out massive civic education, particularly in these pastoral areas, from one settlement to the other, to tell them the importance of being counted as a population. You've not done that. You have already commenced the issue of doing mapping exercise, and people have not been adequately informed. It was a shock, even for leaders. Forget about population. I, as a governor, was shocked to be told 3 days from now, the mapping exercise is commencing. And I'm told from bystanders. The issue becomes, your processes have not complied with the requirement of Kenyan Constitution, which is public participation centered. Public participation centered. So what are you going to do to make sure that that aspect of neglect is going to be taken care of, and so that population are sensitized, unless you have some skewed approach to the issue of census?
Thank you, Your Excellency. We are under time pressure, and I'll give two public, to the two public, and then to two MPs, and then I can, just wait. The public, I have identified you, I'll give you, you have raised your hand. Mheshimiwa Bashir. Please be brief. Please be brief.
Yes.
Just a question. Chair, I'll give you the two of you guys, and then I'll give to the public.
I'll
come
brief.
to you.
One is directed to the rep for planning ministry. I think in regards to what Governor Mandela had said, have you done a benchmarking for pastoralist communities census in other countries that have pastoralists? You know, there are a number of them in Africa. So we want to understand, have they conducted census before? What are the best practices? And are you going to follow that? Because the thing is that how you conduct census in a pastoralist community is not the same as people who are settled and don't move. That's very critical. Something else about IBC. We are aware that issue of referenda will come at your table. It's not you to decide, that we understand. On a light note where Honorable Jaldesa has mentioned, we are aware that certain contests want to take or get hold of this issue of referenda and boundaries. That's why they are talking about new teams in IEBC. There's a PAC report. As pastoralist community, we will oppose to the man, and we're not going to accept, because there's a report of JLAC which said the IBC commissioners are okay. Now there's something to do with, it's tied to census, boundary review, and a new team. As pastoralist communities, let's be cognizant of that fact. And as members of parliament,
thank you, Mheshimiwa. Thank you. Chair, and then Dr. Dahiye. Chair, and then Dr. Dahiye, and then Mrs. Dr. Hon.
Thank you so much, Session Chair. I want to be specific, following up the issue of census. I am aware, especially from my county, that the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics have gone on the ground, they have surveyed, and actually, just listen to me, please. Officer, just listen to me. You have already made your decision, in my view. You have already said that in a specific county, there are a certain number of households. And you have taken that number as where you will go and count people. Which means now you already concluded that you have a certain number of households. So you eliminate other people. The others who are not in that group of households may not be counted. What plans do you have to ensure that those ones which were not in those households, because we continue saying your policy is to take census of settled communities. Households are settled. You are not including the other who are not there. Let me finish. Secondly, is census done on the 24th and 25th night only? Is it like an election, so that you finish that day and it's forever? You don't do you don't continue. Then thirdly, why did you have all the leaders meetings in those counties that you have surveyed? Then on the issue of IBC, even IBC is doing the same thing. They have gone to Samburu and they are threatening people. that your wards will go. They will be delimited. Constituencies will go away because Kenya will have 45 million population. They've already known how many Kenyans are going to be there after the census. So we will divide. You already divided the 200 constituency from 45 million. So you know which constituency cannot reach there. You already know that is wrong. You have not gone to the public, to the leaders, to do participation to ensure that these issues are addressed. For my brother, the famous Rendiles are our people, Bana. Don't run away from them. I am a Rendile myself. My origin is a Rendile. So you are in the correct place.
Okay,
and we are all
you.
pastoralists. And
Thank
this
you,
morning,
Chair.
we had said there's no tribe like Rendile, Samburu, what have you. We are all pastoralists.
Thank you, Chair. Daktari, please be brief as well, and then a couple of others, and then I'll have to take it back to the panel. It's a very interesting topic that the leaders are coming to ask questions. So for you, the public, please be patient with us. It's a leaders summit. We will allow you your time. So be patient. We will allow the leaders first. I can see you standing up.
Thank you, Prof. Mine is a small comment and a question. I would like to, because I still believe that this panel is not complete. Some of the questions which we want to ask, I'm not sure it can be asked and adequate. But yesterday, during the speech of His Excellency, the Deputy President, he commented that we have refugees who have been hosted graciously by this country in Garissa County, particularly in Dadaab, Fafi, and parts of Wajir South. Now, the government of Kenya, we are aware, has given a timeline for closure of the camp. And we are told that the camp should be closed in 6 months' time from February. My question is this. First of all, is this a confirmed policy? Because we are aware that there's a letter which has been written, although it has not been made official. 2, in August, which is the date this date will end, will be actually the census time. Now, are you aware that there are Kenyans in the refugee camp from Garissa County, from Wajir County, from Mandera County, from Tana River County, who have joined the camps seeking for services and livelihood? And those people, up to now, the government has not given a way forward. So my question is, what will happen during the census time? Those Kenyans in the refugee camps, will they be identified as Kenyans or as refugees? And finally, we see that there is an ill intention to reduce our population because, for example, in Garissa County, those who are in the camps, if they will not be counted as part of the county population, then we are going to lose a significant people in the census.
Thank you.
County.
Thank you, Daktari. Mheshimiwa Safia, I'll come to you. I'll come to you.
And
Please be brief.
Thank you so much, Chair, for giving me. And my question, the first one and concern goes to lawyer Abdikadir. And Abdikadir, you know, we were together in the constitutional conference, and you being the chair, you know, I was one among the people who were with you in the final decision making in Naivasha. You remember the kind of input and contribution we have made. And I'm glad that some of the items and the enjoyment that we are making here is as a result of his initiative, Abdikadir. Issues of marginalization, equalization fund, Article 100, all these came because we stood very closely as pastoralists who were in that committee. And I just want to ask, how can we activate Article 100? Is one thing, because you know that is a baby that I love so much. 2, an issue of equalization has been politicized. And we don't know how best we can address the issue of equalization, because issue of equalization is very clear. If we go to Australia, it is very clear. And we know who are the targeted people and the areas that it addresses. So equally, we had a target and beneficiaries of equalization fund when we were deciding to put it in the constitution. We also need to know and how best we can go around that and with your advice. The other thing that I wanted to ask is issue of the census. The issue of census and 7 days is not going to be enough for the pastoralist community. I have been heavily involved in the mapping exercise because it is dry spell. I was doing water tankering to my community when you are doing the mapping exercise in my constituency. So I know 7 days will not be enough. And we would like to know from the ministry, what is the plan? Just as my able governor from Mandera has questioned about the preparation that you have on the census, we equally want to know because we know you are not prepared for the mapping. You are not prepared for the mapping because, like Luko, I had to hire 14 vehicles to do a government exercise because your vehicles could not go to some of the places because of the security. So we need you to plan proper before you go into census exercise. And I agree with the governor properly that that exercise needs to be completely and holistically planned for properly for the pastoralist community. The pastoralist community are unique people and they cover two-thirds of this country.
Thank you. Thank you much.
We
are under time pressure. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Now you have. Okay,
go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. No, I've allowed you. Go ahead. I've only mentioned time pressure. Pole, Mheshimiwa. Okay, we will ask that question on your behalf. Mheshimiwa. And then Kosar, and then...
Sessional Chair, Dr. Thank you very much. Mine is going to be extremely very simple. And Chair,
go ahead.
This question is directed to this. And I think full participation of the representatives and the views of the public into our input regarding the census is critical. I want to ask very simple suggestions, whether you can be able to make an input into how we will be able to conduct the census. And most of the suspicion of the members of parliament and the people in this region is the question of the census and the numbers. Why is critical? Because it's significantly going to affect the funding we are going to get and all other apportionment of any through the CRA and all those things. So it's critically important for us to have a significant input into our concerns. I want to ask simple questions. As a way forward, can those, particularly the Somalis or pastoral communities, be counted based on wherever they are on a simple question, on the basis of their districts of origin? Okay. The districts of origin. If a Somali or a Rendile is in Garissa on the day of 24th and 25th, can he be factored on his district of origin in Marsabit or the one in Mandera if he's in Garissa for those, such that we can have a significant number of coverage for wherever we are. That has already been adopted by IBC in the last registration of voters exercise, and it was critical, and they were able to get 14 million persons registered. For now, we are targeting 45 million Kenyans. If indeed we have to capture that, can we be able to have a question indicating their district of origin and the same data be translated into the numbers of respective counties?
Thank you.
That is an opinion. Finally, the challenges that had been mentioned, if these things are going to be vectored based on the tablets, and they're based on the network, area network coverage, and most of these pastoralists are on a very remote, where even this gadget may not be significantly be charged or may not be properly reception. What amends are you making so that we can...
Thank you very much, Mheshimiwa. Thank you. We are under time pressure. Kosar, ask your question quickly down there with the public, that guy. And then one more person and we stop there. We stop. Okay, Mheshimiwa. You're just raising your hand now, isn't it? It's okay. We'll give you time.
I got two questions. One question to my brother, Mr. Goulier, and it is that Wajir South constituency is the second largest constituency in the Republic of Kenya.
It comes from there?
And from 1963 to date, it has only one parliamentary seat. Could you tell us what is the criteria used or what the constitution says about, because villages have been divided into constituencies, we know very well. If the criteria is to walk up to Nairobi to your offices, we will do, please. All right, I'm over with that. Second question to Majority Leader Mheshimiwa Duale. We hear of something called Nyumba Kumi. This Nyumba Kumi, is it for only Nairobi or other Kenyans? Northeastern Province or Pastoralists is not included. I think, in my opinion, Nyumba Kumi will have assisted us very much in capping security in the pastoralist areas.
Mheshimiwa, that's the last one. Mheshimiwa, that will be the last. I mean, we've got the panel to answer all those questions.
Okay, thank you, Sessional Chair. First and foremost, I want to thank our colleagues from Northeastern because they have really worked on this issue and they are now putting us on the right line. I just want to appeal and ask our colleagues from North Rift so that to do the same, because we are now seeing even the government attention is coming to this other side, and there are more problems to this other side than even our side, the other side. Otherwise, mine is just to ask man with on CRA. I think there's nothing that we can play with here. And we want to tell you, Kenya is being ruled, it's not around anyway, but this is a message that we want to give it to them. That constitution should be respected. I know there are some challenges. People are taking some loopholes and say, because of this, we will twist this way. But let us go to what is on the ground. Even a layman can understand that this one is supposed to be done. Now that we are together, there is no more game. And I want to ask our friend, in fact, we respect you. What you did, you dealt us when we were making the constitution. I was among the members on the secretariat. And let us just give us, and we will be moving with you. Thank you.
Our panels. Thank you very much, the leaders and the rest who have asked questions. I do apologize that there were so many other hands, but I couldn't take on because of time factor. We have to go for lunch and prayers, and therefore, but before then, we want the panelists to respond to all that. Who wants to start? Yeah, from here.
Okay, Chair, I think there are quite a number of issues. I don't know whether some of them could be repeating, but I try to attempt to respond to the ones that I can. Others, I think I'll also seek some support from the audience. Now, starting with the NIMS and the census, I think there was a question on whether the NIMS and the census are the same or they are conflicting or what. One, I want to start from the point that the census and the NIMS project are two different activities of the government. They are not the same, and they are being managed from different points. But I can say that they are somewhat related because they are focusing on the population. The modalities of undertaking the census and the NIMS project are totally different. And maybe I can more so answer on the census because I think I'm more versed with the census issue. So the issue of having the NIMS activity in this year when we are undertaking the census is not an intention. It's not in the ill interest of the public. It's only that it's a coincidence. Just the same way as the review of the boundaries, it is not linked to the census date because censuses have been undertaken in Kenya since 1948. And since 1969, we have been doing censuses after every 10 years. And we all bear in mind that this year is the 2019, and it is the 10th year after 2009. So it's not by coincidence that these things are linked, and maybe the uses might be different. On uniformity, Mheshimiwa Leader of Majority talked of the sensitivity of the census, and we all believe it is very sensitive because it's about numbers of the population. And I can, in this forum, say that the methodology of undertaking the census is uniform across the country. All the things that we are doing in Garissa are the same things that we did in Bugoma, the things that we are doing in Mombasa, and there is uniformity in undertaking of the census. There is nothing that is unique that we did in this place that has not been done in the other places. Then there was an issue of the impact of the mapping. The essence of doing mapping in preparation for the census is just to assist in the planning. Otherwise, the actual enumeration will be undertaken in August, and the things that we are doing is to try and ensure that we plan adequately for the census. So when we are doing the mapping, is an activity to ensure that we know what number of personnel do we require, how many people do we require in Garissa to undertake the census effectively, how many people do we require maybe in Mombasa to undertake the census effectively, and that's why we have been doing the mapping. Another activity that makes the mapping important is to ensure that there is completeness in coverage, and there is no double counting or undercounting. That's why we do the mapping. And we draw the maps to assist the enumerators to know the extent of their coverage. So the essence of the mapping is only to administer the census and not to provide other activities. And this one is uniform across the country, and it is being done using the same methodology. We did, I think there was a mention of some boundary disputes, and I agree that as we undertook the mapping, we were coming across some boundary disputes, and these across the country. We had boundary disputes in Kisumu, in Kericho. We had boundary disputes in Kisii. And what we do when you encounter such, since the Bureau is not an authority on the boundaries, we always refer to the people that are an authority on the boundaries. If they are administrating boundaries, we refer them back to the administrators so that they can clear the boundaries, and then you go back and continue with the mapping. If there are political boundaries, we refer them to the IBC. They sort out that, and then we go back and do what we are supposed to do. The issue of participatory and living out the county governments, I want to say, no, we have not done that. Maybe we might be perceived to have done that because we have not, at the moment, discussed issues with the various categories of leadership. But I want to mention in this particular place that even the leadership, the members of parliament from this region, they have held several meetings with the Director General in the office to discuss matters concerning the census. And these issues are some of the things that we are putting in place as we move ahead to plan the census. For example, when we were about to map this region, we did a meeting with the leaders. Of course, I want to mention that it don't involve the governors, but I don't want to apologize on that, to look at the best ways that we needed to approach this place. And some of the recommendations were that as much as we are doing the mapping, we needed to involve people from this region, which we did. And mapping this region, that is Garissa, Wajir, Mandera, it was undertaken by people from these counties. Although after this, we have taken them away to other regions, I hope they are not going to be rejected in those places, because from today, I think they are moving from Marsabit to Mombasa, and we are making use of them as Kenyans. But that recommendation came from the local so that we ensure that issues of security are minimized. And I want to assure this house that every corner has been covered, no village was left, because we had that input. Even the transport was also used from this place. And I want to say that the issue of a census being moved to the Ministry of Interior, that one is not the case. It's only that there are activities in the Ministry of Interior that may be similar, but the census is indicated in the Ministry of the Treasury and Planning. Why we need the biometrics in census, I want to say that we are not using biometrics in undertaking the census. Biometrics in another activity. The census will be undertaken in the normal way. The only additional activity or new item in this census is the use of technology. And I think we need all to appreciate that Kenyans are moved and the technology is going to assist us, but we are not using biometrics. But maybe if need be in the future censuses, if need be, maybe that would be used at that time. The issue of enumerating the pastoral community, I think, is quite a big concern, even to us as a bureau. And one I want to mention that it's not the first time that the pastoralists are being enumerated. We did the census 2009, we did the other censuses, and they were enumerated. The only key thing that we'll have to do is that the planning will have to be done from the regions. That's why I'm saying that the counties will be taking a lead in ensuring that the right people are employed or engaged, so that they enumerate the people that might be perceived to be moving. I think these are too many. Maybe the issue of the taboo on counting the pastoralists, I am not very sure. But I believe that since the people who are from here will be involved and they trained to undertake the census, they know what not to mention and they know how to mention it better. So I think what is important is to ensure that we get the right numbers to ensure that planning for this particular area is done adequately. I know there's quite a number that I've not mentioned, but there was a question on benchmarking on other countries that are pastoralist in nature. I want to say that it has been done. There's quite a number of benchmarking, one in terms of technology. There's also another team that is very soon going to Ethiopia. Ethiopia, they're undertaking their census in April this year. And we also want to see that part that is close to us. How are they managing this? So I want to say, yes, it has been done, and we are still continuing to engage. Then I think the issue of the census in one day, because I said that the census will be undertaken on the night of 24th and 25th August. We use that date as the reference date. So even if somebody will be enumerated the following day, we'll be trying to ask them where they were the previous night. Because Kenyans, we undertake a de facto census, and a de facto census is census for all people that will be within our boundaries on that date. Whether they are Ethiopians, whether they are Somalis, whether they are from Germany, anybody will be within Kenya that time will be enumerated. Then the other details on where they come from, other demographics will also be captured. I think maybe for now, we might have captured most of the things.
Thank you very much, Wakili.
Thank you, Chair. There are a number of questions. The first, I think, was Mheshimiwa Lagdera on marginalized areas in respect to the Equalization Fund. Now, marginalized areas is not defined in the Constitution. The reason is by the time we were bringing this in, the definitions part had already been done. So you will see definitions for marginalized people or marginalized communities, but you'll not see for marginalized areas, because the discussion on the Equalization Fund came as a result of the discussion on constituencies and representation. The proposal actually came from Mheshimiwa Martha Karua, if you remember Mheshimiwa Safia. And the idea was that, and it's a fight over how big the constituencies should be and the number. Trying to deal with large constituencies with small populations and small area constituencies with large populations. Nairobi, for example, is about 700 square kilometers. It has about 17 members of parliament. North Horr, you all know, it's a small country. It has one member of parliament. So in trying to reduce this was the issue of how do you ensure that the people who are in a constituency in Nairobi, their numbers matter. While the people in North Horr, the services they get as a citizen matters. So on the one hand, you want to say that MPs represent people, that is true, and therefore a member of parliament should be as broadly as possible representing a relatively equal number of members of the public. That is true. On the other hand, you want to say that a Kenyan citizen in North Horr has the same right to access to infrastructure, to health, to the services from government as one in, say, Nairobi. So if you are in Nairobi, you have access to hospitals, you have access to roads, you have access to electricity, you have access to all this, even though you are very many of you, and the member of parliament's work is less. If you are in North Horr, the idea was to get the Equalization Fund to help you with a bit of that, so that the Equalization Fund then supports your infrastructure, so the people who are in North Horr then have a reasonable level of services. Now, in saying which marginalized areas are, we did not define. So I think the best thing is to get the court or parliament to define those marginalized areas. And it is not on administrative boundaries. We're dealing with political boundaries. So the proposal by the CRA to base the new proposal on locations is, in my view, wrong, because this really was not discussing administrative boundaries. This was based on political boundaries. In terms of the gender question, I think it's really a shame, if you ask me. I did not expect 10 years down the line we would really have this problem. There's absolutely no good reason why we should not have the equalization, the equality item implemented in the Constitution. It's really a failure of Parliament. No two ways about it. And both the male and the female, first, it's a failure of the Kenyan people, because you don't have to add more women members of parliament if you elect them. and majority of the voters are women. I was elected to parliament one time, and majority of my voters were women. So the first question is to the women of this country. Please elect good women leaders. They are as good, if not better, as the men. So that's the first. The second is the reason why we don't have this item passed is because there are more male members of parliament than female members of parliament. If there were more female members of parliament, we should have had this passed. Number three, it is not because of cost. That is a red herring. The entire budget of parliament is less than 1% of our budget as a country. So anything less than 1% will really have no major significant impact. If you closed parliament, the impact financially on our budget will be insignificant. I know that is not a very popular thing to say, but parliament's budget is 27 billion. The country's budget is 2.7 trillion. It is a rounding error. Now imagine somebody tells you we cannot add more women because it will make the costs higher. It is completely illogical. It's not because of cost. Number four, it should not be because of political will, because I've had the president come very clearly. I have had the deputy president. I have had our former prime minister, Honorable Raila. I have had the majority leader. See, all these gentlemen are fully behind this. Really, we have no good reason. My request to Mheshimiwa Safia is, in fact, I was told many of the ladies also were not in Bunge the day we were. It was, eh? Okay. No, so I am getting. So let me leave. So really, there is no good reason, Mheshimiwa, and probably it might be good to go back to the court to get on the next issue on Canaraso in terms of the borrowing from America. We borrowed a number of their mistakes also. We borrowed a number of the good ideas from them, but we carried a bit of, because the problems we're having with the presidential system, that also comes from that side. But their issue essentially is they have two houses. One house is, and the one that deals with the finances, their House of Representatives, the lower house, tries as much as possible to have constituencies that are equal in number to each other. But they are also suffering from political, you've heard of the gerrymandering, where they try and go around areas to get a political agenda as opposed to just numbers. So they have the same problems there also. The Senate is the one that has 2 senators per state, where the state is small, 500,000 people in Wyoming maybe, while a large state like 40 million people in California, still 2. So it's those 2, one representing the state, the other one representing the individual, and the finance bit is done by the lower house. The other state issues are done by we try to do that with the women representative, for example, 1 per county. We try to do that with the county delegations in the Senate so that the counties all carry the same weight. But really, this was a problem that was very difficult to crack because you already had vested interest in existing geographical constituencies. When you have given the public something, it's very difficult to take it back. So those are the problems we were.
Thank you.
One final issue, sorry, Mheshimiwa, I've taken quite a bit of time. On Sophia and Article 100, Parliament has been missing in action. If there was one organ I would have said has been Parliament has been missing in action. So I think Parliament, and I'm happy that you are there, and it gives me quite a bit of hope that the people of Lagdera have finally elected a woman. I know you are a very tough lady. The people of Ijara, the people of Ijara. You know, the people of Ijara and the people of certain constituencies from Wajer are the ones that are considered to be most challenged when it comes to women's rights. That you could fight through and get elected in that constituency. It's kudos to your capacities and your caliber. But I think it also shows that people can change. So I think that is the way to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. Oh, sorry.
Just a quick one. There was a question about the NIMS, the parallel registration going on in Ministry of Interior. This is just like another census and also a registration process which is very elaborate. A law was sneaked into statute law amendment bill in the Assembly, National Assembly, which changed that substantive law by only one, I think, clause. Very unfortunate. the Ministry of Interior and ICT was summoned to the Senate last Thursday. They dodged the meeting. In fact, there is an attempt now from Senate to find a way of suspending that provision. And I would request this forum, because it's going to come to us, they are now doing piloting in 15 counties, for us not to take part in that process. Frankly, I mean, it is everything you have ID card already, you have passports already. There is a program which was being done through the registration of persons to integrate all those things. I think already they put something. But now they have even left that out and come to a new one again. This is a very serious matter because we cannot afford, in fact, our people will be disadvantaged to go through that process. Biometric registration of every person who is now entitled to get an ID card. That is a nightmare, and it's something we need to really pronounce ourselves on. I thank you.
Okay. I would like to answer the question on referendum and divert or digress a bit. If in this referendum we succeed in having sharing of power at the apex, at the presidency, the pastoralist communities, we are doomed. Because the moment we have the big four communities sharing power up there, they will no longer need our vote. The votes will be enough for them, and they will never again need us. We have been able to succeed because we have divided these big tribes. And the moment we divide them, each of them will be coming to us looking for votes. When they come and look for votes in our region, we ask for a road, we ask for a hospital. But the moment those votes are enough for them, when they can be able to say, you become a president, become deputy president, the other one prime minister, the other one deputy prime minister, we are doomed. They will no longer need us. They will do development in their own region. Let us ask them, if the president share power with the prime minister, will share power with the governor. Will you have a prime governor, a prime women rep, a prime MCA, and so on? And then lastly, on the issue of two-third gender rule, as pastoralists, we have tried our best. Out of the 106 members of parliament, almost 30 are women. And again, we have a woman who is our Secretary General of the 80% of the landmass of Kenya, the most powerful woman in Kenya. And these political parties, they are not genuine, because my own political party of Jubilee does not have women leadership at the top. The party leader, the deputy party leader, the Secretary General, the treasurer, whatever, are not women. The same with NASA, and the same with ODM. So why should they come to parliament and try to bulldoze us and pretend as if they are for women? Let them be very genuine so that the women agenda, we can move forward.
Okay, thank you. Prof. Goliath, we are towards...
Thank you very much. I think the issue of boundary review is very emotive. As a commission, we are very much aware of this. It is actually more emotive than the elections themselves. This we know for a fact. And we were 7 commissioners in the commission. Of course, a few of them sacked themselves. Others just had a walk. And these commissioners were representing different interests in this country. And it so happens that 2 of us out of the 3 who are in place are actually from pastoralist background. And therefore, I think you are safe in safe hands in as far as pastoralist aspirations are concerned. And of course, you know we are not cowards. Okay? And we will articulate your issues and your concerns, of course, as we also look at equity in terms of distribution of seats, elective and both nominative seats across the country. I just want to comment on the issue of two-third gender rule. I know that that was lost. Was it this week? I also know there is a High Court order directing IEBC in the next election not to accept political party nominations that don't comply with two-third gender rule. We've written to all political parties to bring to their attention that particular court order. And therefore, as things are, come 2022, we will ask all parties, have you complied with this order? And therefore, we will have a common, there is a ground that we will work together. We invite all the political leadership in this country to come and actualize that court order, and we are going to engage political parties in how to implement that particular court order. Of course, unless an individual or an entity goes to the court, back to the court to challenge or otherwise that particular order. So there is an order in place. The issue of IEBC people going to Samburu and threatening them or loss of constituency or political representation, it's unfortunate. I am not aware, as a commission, we are not aware. The only exercise that we are engaged in currently is actually a baseline risk mapping, where we are trying to look at the issues in terms of political representation, contestations on the ground before we actually start the actual process. So, and these officers of ours are not meant to threaten anyone. They are just to document the current challenges that are there in terms of political representations and give us an information that we can use in the planning process. There was a question asked about Wajir South constituency. I was not there when delimitation was done in the last delimitation process. Ask me about this when this exercise that we are going to engage in is finalized. What we have done about Wajir South, if it meets the necessary threshold. But for your education, the process of delimitation is guided by, of course, population and other parameters which I listed earlier on. But in terms of population, the country is divided into 3 segments. We have cities, sparsely populated areas, and other areas, which means they are neither cities nor sparsely populated. For the cities, once you get the average, as of now, the constitutional limit for Parliament or National Assembly representation is 290. Once we do the census in August, and we have the overall global figure for the whole country, you divide that figure by 290 to get the average per constituency. Then once you have received that figure, for constituencies in cities, you are allowed up to 40% above the average figure, okay? Which means if the average figure is, let's say, I mean, I don't know, but for academic purpose, is about 100,000, then 40% of that above will be what will form a constituency. But if it falls, if that constituency falls in a less populated area, it means you go 40% below the average. So in effect, you have a 80% margin to play around with in terms of creating equitable distribution. But this is in terms of population. And then for other areas, we are looking at 30% room, plus or minus, okay? So that's the broad guidelines. But having said that, we still have other parameters where we look at, and I mentioned earlier on, some of which is communication infrastructure, communities of interest, cultural ties, geographical issues. So all these will be taken into consideration in the wider delimitation process.
Thank you.
So I think you don't need to, but Chair, as a last point, the census is usually back-to-back. I mean, the delimitation is usually back-to-back with the census. The census is done in a 10-year cycle. The delimitation process is 8 to 12 years, which therefore means somewhere in between that, the census is going to be conducted. And immediately after that, we need the approved census results in order to embark and use it for the delimitation process. So it's a back-to-back exercise. And the very last thing, the issue of education, which you talked on earlier on. I think we have despised the teaching profession in these ASAL areas. Teaching is no longer a noble profession, it looks like. Because a number of our youth who graduate to qualify to go to teaching institutions are actually shunning away from it. We have made teaching to be less noble. We've made teaching is for the failures. Can we bring back that nobleness in the teaching profession? Can we support children and encourage them when they have good grades for them to pursue teaching career and be our teachers in our schools? And then if you look at in terms of investments, yes, we are investing in creating classrooms, we create the 4 walls, but really we don't look at the quality of the teaching that goes on in those 4 walls. We are busy expanding and creating classrooms, not realizing that there is more to it than quality education than establishing classrooms. Can we pay or make deliberate efforts to ensure that the quality of teaching in our primary and secondary schools is actually improved so that we can have good grades, students with good grades that can go to higher institutions, particularly teaching institutions.
Thank you, Prof. Mheshimiwa Arbele, if you can be also quite quick, lunch is on the table, and I've got something to raise.
Thank you. I also would like to appreciate and indeed welcome all the comments made by our brothers in welcoming the Rendiles and even accommodating Rendiles in the dominant Somali areas. In regard to my brother Raso, who said that Rendiles are indeed very much comfortable in Marsabit County under the leadership of Honorable Mahmoud Ali. Yes, indeed we are, but we cannot afford to put all our eggs in one basket. I want to create this awareness. Actually, when I brought up this subject, many people thought maybe it is the odd one out. But indeed, I did it deliberately because I want to create awareness among us, the participants here in this summit today, for each and everyone to understand and know who are Rendiles. We are actually, Rendiles are blood brothers. They say blood is thicker than water. And we have found ourselves, we want to recognize ourselves with our brother Somalis, that we indeed belong to the Somalis. So what is wrong if we relocate some Rendiles to come and settle in Garissa, and some in Mandera, and some in Wajir, and we will still retain our constitutional Isamis? Is there anything wrong with that? So kindly wait for Rendiles to come and knock your doors and open them wide for Rendiles to walk in. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, thank you very much, panelists. We are almost time is up. I want to take a couple of minutes. We have got our sponsors. Adam is here. We've got also the country director for Save the Children who has got a question to ask. Can you give the microphone to Wang Lee there at the back? The microphone there. Can you give this, quick, at the back there? Quick question for the panel, so the chair. Sorry. This is someone who came from far away, the country director for Save the Children, and one of the sponsors, Adam, who is a sponsor that is Hawaii. So it's important that we give them a couple of minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the chair. All political observed because of time pressure. I think I have one statement and one technical comment. The statement is, on behalf of a lot of international organizations, we are committed to the region which are represented here for the development of hand-to-hand. So we very much looking forward as a development partner to working hand-to-hand with FCDC and the parliamentary group together for the development of this area. And a technical comment on we understand, for example, the revenue allocation now document has not been passed in the House. But in the current, for example, public consultation document, there have been some formulae being put in there to attempt to try how the new allocation will looks like. And we have to see there is public sector service provisions to be brought in the consideration, but the current denomination of that formula is still very much population-based. And then the source of that indicator probably is very difficult to find the quality indicator. Therefore, there is a suggestion of to try to use some of the outcome, for example, health outcome indicators, rather than a pure population-based indicator, just as an example, or like child mortality or malnutrition rate, which are quality data being produced and collected from day to day from our current health system. Yeah. So we are committed to provide technical support to the process. That was just as an example of how you can look at the formulation from different ways. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Can you please respond to Senator Mohammed?
That is a very good observation. I would suggest maybe if you can give us some write-up, I think I will give us the contact when the formula comes to us. Because it's important actually we look at the outcome indicators instead of, because it's very vague. Our concern is actually on health, in water, on agriculture. The database they're using, we don't know. We don't know yet. In fact, we are waiting for the formula recommendation to come to us. But by that time, then we require your input actually. It's very important input. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you want to take over? Yes. I want us to thank the panelists and give them applause, a round of applause for the great input that they have put in. And I'm so happy that all of you have been quite contributory. We were past time. Mwalimu, ungeniuliza kitambo. Unataka sasa?
We're out of time.
You have sat on it. We have to close it, unfortunately.
Yes.
You have sat on your question for a long time. So, but thank you very much, the panelists, and thank you very much, the honorable members and the public. I think that was quite participatory thing. And the final point I have to close on, it's not a statement or anything, is to say that we need to have collective responsibilities for all the challenges and the opportunities, in fact, that are ahead of us. And therefore, that collective responsibility is all that it comes into this particular thematic session. And thank you very much for participating. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chair. Now, let me just take less than 5 minutes of your time. We have one of the representatives of Huawei here with us. And the presentation is going to take less than 5 minutes. I think we have a very short video clip that is going to form part of his presentation. Studio, please do that in good time because we're supposed to break for lunch and prayer.
This is a story about the Rural Star, a revolutionary mobile base station that has transformed the lives of the people of Duse village in Isiolo County. Duse is home to an estimated population of 2,000 people who are mostly pastoralists, while others are involved in small-scale mining and agriculture. For many years, Duse lacked infrastructure and development that hindered its growth. Access to basic services and amenities were a major challenge. Communication and connectivity is a critical component to stimulate socio-economic development of any population.
Previously, people had a lot of problems. Imagine you want to withdraw 1,000 shillings from M-Pesa and you travel for 18 kilometers to go and withdraw 1,000 in Kenya. And you come back. So when you go, you have to pay motorcycle 500 and then coming back 500, so you will remain with nothing.
While mobile networks might not have been able to expand as much as we would have desired to the rural areas, the reality is that technology is not the problem. The know-how to do that expansion is not the problem. It's actually the other factors like electricity or the access roads.
Providing rural connectivity is particularly challenging due to the small and disparate populations spread over large areas. This makes investment in communications infrastructure uneconomical and takes a long time to build.
When we face technological challenges, like offering this type of coverage, we need to look for innovation. We provide our parts and we look for external partners as well.
Recognizing these challenges, but the potential benefits if they can be solved, Huawei partnered with Safaricom to develop an innovative new solution to address the critical need for internet connectivity in Duse.
Through our Twaweza spirit, we seek to connect people to people, people to knowledge, and people to ideas. In the case of Duse, Safaricom partnered with Huawei to come up with a new way to deliver the service that is available through normal base stations. But this particular execution allows us to have the service coming to the people of Duse in a simpler way.
So we had to say, what is the need for this village, a small village in very remote areas? And this is the Rural Star solution is designed for that purpose.
The solution uses both design and technology innovations to reduce setup costs, running costs, and be more environmentally friendly, whilst providing both 2G voice and text message, as well as 3G broadband internet to users. The first innovation, coverage from the Rural Star mast, is enough to cover all the households without having to cover the surrounding uninhabited areas. Thus, a small pole can be used, which is cheaper to build and can be put up in just 1 week. The second innovation, by getting internet signal by 4G from a neighboring tower instead of cables or microwave, is cheaper, uses less power, and allows for a smaller pole. The third innovation, by using less power, the site can be entirely powered by solar with a battery for evenings. This is cheaper than using electricity or a generator and is more stable. The Rural Star solution has enabled the literal overnight socio-economic transformation of Duse. Access to voice, data, SMS, M-Pesa, and high-speed internet network catalyzed the rapid growth and convenience of essential services such as health, education, as well as enhanced security.
This internet has assisted us so much because our teachers can now access the internet and get for more information that will assist in teaching and learning.
Lakini mbele tulikuwa tunatumia kabambe, lakini kwa sasa hivi unaweza tumia touch screen, kuingia Google, Facebook, Twitter na unapata mambo yote yanaendelea Kenya kwa leo.
Sasa ni easy. Kwa sababu sasa unapiga simu kenye unahitaji, kama dawa unaletewa. Kama sasa nikiwa na emergency hapa sasa na sina hiyo dawa, napiga tu kina simu nawaambia kuna emergency fulani niletee dawa fulani inakuja. Lakini zamani ingekuwa kitu kama hiyo.
It has brought about M-Pesa. The M-Pesa which is not there before. Whenever people get the money, they just come here, withdraw the money, and they buy things from this area, and then they go back to their nomadic life.
Tunawasiliana na wakubwa, tunawasiliana na ofisi, tunashirikiana kama kuna shida, tunasema shida yetu, tuko na shida kama hii, na tunapata urgent intervention, inaangaliwa haraka na tunapata huduma.
We are very grateful. Life is very easy nowadays. It's very easy.
The Rural Star has brought better life to Duse, with an average of 600 users accessing connectivity daily.
So, thank you very much. I'll just talk for 2 minutes before prayers and before lunch. As I was introduced, my name is Adam Lane. I work for Huawei. I don't think many of you knew Huawei was behind most of these innovations for Safaricom. So about 2/3 of Safaricom's network, and in fact all of the FCDC counties network is done by Huawei. And M-Pesa is also done by Huawei. We do a lot of other smart technologies for the SGR, the Ministry of ICT and other things. I think the key point is that Kenya has made good progress in internet connectivity. It's much further ahead than many other African countries. And there's huge opportunities to do more, but also how to use that in interesting ways. So if you can go to the next slide, I think a couple of the opportunities around health, around agriculture, around security. So in agriculture, for example, we're working with dairy cattle and Calro to try and improve the productivity of dairy cattle. A simple collar that tells you when your cow is on heat or not and when it's ready for insemination. No jokes, please. We'll also, I promised to Mr. Galay, we'd also look at a different collar for remote areas that's more about location tracking. So you can track your cattle and be alerted if anybody cuts a collar or anybody takes the cattle out of a certain area. The second one is a call box. I think actually this is revolutionary. The colleagues from Kenya Markets Trust were talking about this earlier during the break. How can you export products if you can't keep them cool, whether horticultural, whether they're meat? How can you transport products that need to be kept cool, such as vaccines or other products? So this is a technology solution that we have with a partner that doesn't need any power. You can pick this box. It's using dry ice to keep cool. You put the box on any truck or matatu or maybe a tuk-tuk or a motorbike. I'm sure Kenyans are very innovative. and then transport products for 3-4 days, and they're kept cool the whole time. And you can use your smartphone to monitor how cold it is, to control the temperature, and know the location of that box. So that can keep products cool, whether it's camel milk to export to Nairobi, fish from Lake Turkana, or meat or anything else. It could really make a huge difference and create jobs for people that can move in this supply chain around the cold chain. Nobody's going to be paying millions or tens of millions for very expensive trucks. So this is a very interesting solution. The second one is around health. We've been trying to work with Lamu County for a while around video conferencing for remote training, remote consultations. I think there's a huge opportunity here to train health workers, to train staff, provide consultations. The other one in the top corner is around smartphones. I believe the government's procuring tens of thousands of smartphones for the census. I hope they can be used by community health workers. Community health workers can download simple apps, and there's no cost, and you can do hearing tests, you can do sight tests, you can install very simple gadgets like this one on a smartphone to do cervical cancer tests as well. There's many things you can do with a smartphone that can bring health to the community. You don't have to bring them to facilities far away. Many, many low-cost things that can be done. So let's use some of these innovative technologies. I see some here from Garissa County already. I think there's so much innovation. They're not expensive. Most people already have smartphones, so we're not going to sell smartphones, but I want people to use them better in more innovative ways to provide health to the local people in a way that's culturally sensitive. Also videos. There's so many videos in local dialects that can be used to educate people on smartphones or on tablets that can make the role of the community health worker much more interesting and much more useful and much more practical. The last slide before this mentioned about Ejira. Ejira is the Ministry of ICT, CS Mashiru's flagship program to get jobs online and to study online. Now you have better internet, especially in the urban areas, but also in rural areas. Youth can study online and they can get jobs online. And the last one around safety. I think many of you would have seen in Nairobi the cameras that flash on the streets, that Huawei provides for the NPS, as well as the 4G devices. We also need to talk with all of you here. What is the right solution to help improve security and safety in these areas as well? I think even in the US, they're trying to argue you don't need a bigger building. And then not using the internet, even there's internet there. So let's see how coordination and service, especially the youth, of course, are the majority of the population. And they're online, so let's get to them online. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, studio. Just a minute, some announcement of that is Adam learned from Huawei, the global distributor of ICT. So some important information, even as we break up for lunch, we're going to have some letter to be specific, natural resource management and community land protection in context of mega infrastructure. You know,